Okay, we're going to try to get started in about a minute. Okay, welcome to State, Federal, and Veterans. It's 9:02. We're starting a minute late, but that's due to the weather. We try to be on time. And I'd like to ask Representative Finney if you would lead us in the pledge. Okay, again, welcome to State, Federal, and Veterans. We have a hearing this morning on 5 different measures. We have some folks that are on their way. We have some subs coming in. There's obviously some weather, but we will dance with who comes to the party. And thankfully, Representative Newell is at our party this morning, the prime sponsor for HB 392. Welcome, Representative Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for coming out. I think I was just running alongside one of these guys trying to get here in time. Let me see. So my name is Jody Newell. I'm representing Cheshire 4, which is a little slice of heaven over there in Keene. And I just wanted to give a quick introduction to this bill, and I'm going to need to scoot off. So I know you have all heard a couple Article 5 convention calls and a delegate instructions bill. And so I really don't think I need to flesh out the concept. I think you guys probably are pretty familiar with that. You've seen, as well as I have, although I'm sure more on account of the seats you hold on this committee, plenty of emails from folks concerned about a well-funded effort to rewrite the Constitution by nefarious actors. This is a concern I'm very familiar with. I actually got involved with this movement. I first visited this building as a volunteer for an organization called Wolfpack, which is a grassroots funded group of volunteers reading DOJ, ABA, and CRS reports in our spare time and talking to legislators about the best solution we knew of how to address the corruption of our democracy. Our issue was the corrupting issue of the corrupting influence of money in politics. With Citizens United and all the other cases whose precedent it was built on, with the body directly benefiting from this corruption, tasked with addressing it, fixing this issue surely seemed insurmountable. But there is a way, because the one thing that the Supreme Court is beholden to is the Constitution. Now, I know you've all heard about
Good morning. It being 9:15, I am hereby opening the public hearing, or reopening the public hearing on HB 38. Excuse me, not public hearing, executive session. Let me just give me a second to realize where we are. And I will recognize Representative Rhodes for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move retain for House Bill 38. I don't think my-
Is there a second? Representative Stone seconds.
Or second.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, we've heard several bills already, bail and or bail commissioners, and I think that the best thing to do right now is retain these and kind of put them together and see what we can come up with.
Representative Stone, would you like to speak to your second?
I would concur with Representative Rhodes.
Thank you. I'll lead off any discussion by saying the following. I have conferred with the court system. I've conferred with our colleagues in the other body, and I have also conferred with the ACLU and several other folks who have testified, including Professor Scher. And we are working on combining several versions of this, and we're going to retain just about all of these bills so that we can work on them over the summer. The courts right now are very tied up with felonies first, and we're going to defer a little bit to let them get their feet on the ground with that so that we can come in this fall with a good version that takes all of these into account and covers all the concerns addressed by these various bills. So for anyone with concerns, we're not closing the door on these. We're just holding on to them so we can further work on them and distill down a good piece of legislation that is going to move through both bodies and is going to capture all the concerns that everybody has with the current system. And with that, I'll open it up for any further comments. Representative Newman.
Yeah, I have a question. The first one is, you said all of these bills. I'm assuming that you meant all of the bail type bills as opposed to all of the bills on the. Okay. Now
As convenient as that would be, no.
Just wanted to make sure for a minute. Maybe I was having flashbacks. The other thing is, could you just please go through what it means to retain a bill and what effect that has on next year and who gets to vote on it at the end of the year and all of those kind of things so that everybody understands what exactly retain means?
Thank you. That's a good idea. When we retain a bill, what it simply means is the committee holds on to the bill, and it's still a live bill before us. What it does basically is just gives us more time. We have to address the bill this fall with either the same results of an ITL or an ought to pass. It just gives us more time to work on the bill. Retain means we're going to hold on to it. We're going to do some more work on it, but we still have to come to the same set of conclusions one way or the other that we would have if we would have acted on it right now. Is that?
And the only follow-up I have to that, never did fully understand what happens at the end of the year, that if you have to act on it, and the way I think it might work is that you vote whether it can be heard in the next session or whether has the motion that passes that it doesn't get heard. Is that close?
Somewhat close. What would happen is, let's use this as an example. Let's say we took 5 bills that had to do with bail, and we worked on one of them and amended it so that it encompassed pieces of all the other bills. We would then ITL the other bills. The one bill that we have would be OTP, and that would be taken up as we sat again in January.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will. Excuse me. Go ahead, Representative Muse.
Just a quick comment. All of these bills deal with systemic changes in the judicial and criminal justice system, and these changes tend to be far-ranging in terms of their impact. They also tend to be not cheap. So putting the brakes on this a little bit so that we can actually make a better decision and have a better bill, I think is a better outcome in the long term. And I do recognize that there are still some pain points that need to be addressed in the short term. But what I would hope is that some of the testimony that we've heard during this bill and with some of the other bills would lead folks to be more aware of perhaps how some of those pain points could be addressed in the short term to alleviate the situation somewhat until we actually have a systemic solution. So just wanted to say that, we're aware of the urgency, but we're also aware of the need to pass good and thoughtful legislation. Thanks.
I would concur with everything that you just said. I would also add to it that we are going to continue working with all of the stakeholders in this, to include the bail commissioners, to include the courts, to include just about everyone that has had an opinion on it so far. And I'm not going to make a subcommittee of this. This is important, so I intend to work on it as a full committee as we go along, so everyone will have input. Representative Selly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a procedural question as a new representative. So we have, I forget, maybe let's say 5 bills on bail reform issues. If we're aware that like 4 of them have components that we think are really workable, but one we feel has enough misguidance that we really don't think it should even be considered with the others, how do we handle, do we then vote separate? I guess
Any bill we retain, whether or not we feel it has merit or not, would be handled just as if we handled it today. So if at the end, after we've worked on all these and come up with a good piece of legislation, even the ones that have merit will be ITL'd in favor of the one that took pieces from all of the others. And the ones that never had any merit in the first place, we will just deal with them as if we dealt with them today. I don't want to telegraph something that I don't intend by ITLing one bill today and leaving the rest. I want to make sure that we look at each piece and give it its due weight, because all of them do have expenses and will affect the criminal justice system in the state for many years to come. So I think it's worth looking at everything in depth.
One thing to that for her.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Solag, the only thing I would like to add that I think was maybe part of your question is each and every single bill will be voted on separately as an individual bill. So I may have misled when I said, kind of mush these or whatever word I used. Each one will still be individually voted on. Is that better?
yes, thank you. I worry where we're aware that like one of them in particular seems to have a lot of unconstitutional elements, but others seem to have more components that we can navigate, just making sure we're not punting something that will ultimately get us into deeper hot water.
Yeah, there's no commitment to anything by retaining it. Representative Bolden.
Thanks. Going off of all of that conversation, so I'm imagining that your plan is to have work sessions that are announced that are on all of the bills on this topic, and there'll be full committee. And then eventually we might drum up some kind of amendment, pick a bill to amend, kill the rest, and move forward with one bill. And so I just wanted to suggest, and you do not have to decide today, but maybe I believe you have the option to hold a public hearing on whatever we ultimately put together if you want to. And I don't know if that would be a good step or if we just get testimony repeating what we've already heard. But if it's significantly different, it may be worthwhile. Thank you.
I agree, and I think that our work sessions are public, so I think that anyone who cares will probably attend them anyway. And if we alter the subject matter so much that it requires a public hearing to talk about the issues, I certainly will do that. But we can discuss that as a committee. Representative Newman.
And my question is, all of these bills that deal with this will eventually go through this committee because they are all subject to second committee to come here for that kind of stuff. Okay. Because I don't know if there are any in any other committees.
I'm not sure that there are, but I know that the other body has some too that will be brought and worked on at the same time at the crossover. So yeah, all roads lead to Rome.
And you're the emperor.
And thankfully, I have clothes. Yeah. with that, we will. The clerk will call the roll. We'll be taking that bill up in a little bit.
Vice Chair Rhodes? Yes. Representative Pratt?
Yes.
Representative Hill?
Yes.
Representative Sellers?
Yes.
Representative Janvrin?
Yes.
Representative Mannion?
Yes.
Representative Reed? Representative Stone?
Yes.
Representative Tenzar?
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright? Representative Muse?
Yes.
Representative Bolden?
Yes.
Representative Bradley?
Yes.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Newman?
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell?
Yes.
Representative Selig?
Yes.
Representative Wheeler? And Mr. Chair?
Chair votes yes.
All right, the total is 20 yay, 0 nay. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, are we putting things on consent? Because I think we do have to explicitly discuss it and agree to it.
On a retain, I don't think
Oh.
we do. No.
Thanks. My bad.
Okay. At this time, I'm closing the executive session on HB 38 and opening the executive session on it's okay, we're not going to do anything. HB 318, bill eliminating bail commissioners. Again, this is going to fall into the previous one, so I'm hoping that we do not need to reiterate our previous discussion. I will be recognizing Representative Janvrin for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to retain HB 318 FNA.
Second. Okay. Seconded by Representative Harry Gathright. Representative Janvrin, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would just say that along with House Bill 38, the intent is to Frankenstein a bill at the end of the session.
Very good. Second, would you like to speak to your second? No. Well said. Frankenstein stays. There being no further discussion, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes?
Yes.
Representative Pratt?
Yes.
Representative Hill?
Yes.
Representative Sellers?
Yes.
Representative Janvrin?
Yes.
Representative Mannion?
Yes.
Representative Reed? Representative Stone?
Yes.
Representative Tenzar?
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright? Representative Muse?
Yes.
Representative Bolden?
Yes.
Representative Bradley?
Yes.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Newman?
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell?
Yes.
Representative Selig?
Yes.
Representative Wheeler? Chair Roy?
Chair votes yes.
The total is 20 yes, 0 no. Motion passes.
At this point, I close the public hearing on HB 318.
Executive session.
Yes. Executive session. Close the executive session on HB 318 and open the executive session on HB 504. And I recognize Representative Reed for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to ITL Bill 504-FN.
Second.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Bill 504 FN allows for the appointment of a previous adult board, parole board, amends the stipend for the vice chair of the said board, and makes an appropriation to the board. The important service the parole board serves and the amount of time a member dedicates to the performance of their duties, and increase in expenditures by $51,500. Thank you.
Representative Mannion, would you like to speak to your second? Did he make the second?
Yep, you did.
No, I think she covered it. Thank you.
Discussion.
Yes. Excuse me.
Representative Harry Gathering.
Right, this cold weather is messing with my asthma, so so if my voice goes out, that's the reason. We heard testimony from the board on several occasions over the last year and last week that they're having a problem actually meeting because if two people are there, are gone, they don't have enough coverage. So we already know that they're behind. And so they come to us for help. I can't understand why we would be ITL in this bill. I believe that that's part of our duty to help. And he's asked for at least 5 days or 5 meetings a year. I think that that's pretty good. Personally, I think he's going to need more than that. Okay, the way the courts and everything are backed up and how people are trying to get parole and those things of that nature. So we actually had a finance person that actually wrote the bill. And so, and knowing that, I truly believe that she's already looked at the finances, you know, so, and felt that we would be able to cover that. Otherwise, I truly don't believe the bill would have been written. So if there was a question about the finance, I truly believe that we should have gone to finance and inquire instead of putting it out there that we don't have the funds. And, you know, so.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to recess this bill for 5 minutes, and we will pick it up again in 5 minutes. Republican members of the committee, could you please meet me in the my office?
Sit on the bench. Not quite sure which.
I'm reopening the executive session on HB 504, and I'm going to recognize Representative Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to withdraw my previous ITL and change it to, okay.
Would you be willing to withdraw your motion?
I will, yes, thank you.
Recognize Representative Reed for a new motion.
I would like to make a move to make Bill 504 an OTP and ought to pass.
And do I hear a second? Okay. Did you get those? Would you like to speak to your motion, Representative Reed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After hearing from Representative Cartwright, she made some very good, she made some very good points, and at that point, we decided to change. Thank you.
Representative Mannion, would you like to speak to your second?
No, that covers it. Same,
Okay.
same situation.
I would add that as upon further reflection, we are a policy committee and we agree with the policy of being able to backfill those slots. And we agree that they need some more money. And with regard to how much and what percent, we'll let finance discuss that. And I think it's not an outrageous amount they've asked for. So we're going to go ahead and any further discussion. Representative Selig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just would like to say one of the things that I appreciated was the recognition from the people who presented the bill and testified about it, that their goal is not to have substantial increases, but to accommodate their committee with experienced members for known absences so that they can ensure that their process happens in a timely manner.
That's a point well taken. And I think that one of the things that we've reflected on is the speciality required in these positions, that to backfill it and to fill these positions, you have to be able to offer some reasonable enumeration for lawyers and people of that to take away from their private practice to come in and serve. Further discussion. Representative Newman.
And I'd like to thank you for your comments. And I think that I would just like to say that we are, in fact, a policy committee, and we should consider policy. We should get the policy right and make sure that's what we want to do. And if there's a financial problem with it, then the finance committee will determine whether or not they have the resources to be able to let that, because we'll go to the second committee for financing.
Again, point well taken. Seeing no further, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Sellers,
Yes.
Representative Janvin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Tenzar,
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chair Roy.
Chair votes yes.
Total is 20 yeas, 0 nays. Motion passes.
Any objection to consent? It'll be on consent. At this time, I close the executive session on HB 504 and open the executive session on HB 643. And I recognize Representative Pratt for a motion.
I make a motion of ITL on House Bill 643.
Is there a second?
Tenzar seconds.
Seconded by Representative Tenzar. Representative Pratt, would you like to speak to your motion?
The motion of ITL for 643 is because of unintended consequences. This bill to legalize cannabis has led to damaging consequences in other states around the country. This will lead to an increase in cannabis availability, advertising, public consumption, possible addiction, driving under the influence, accidents, less attendance at jobs and schools. It has been stated that this is needed to relieve pain, but the pain, suffering to society will increase and not decrease.
Representative Tenzar, would you like to speak to your second?
No, Representative Pratt said it well.
I'll open discussion by saying, as a committee, there are several bills in another committee that deal with this issue in a much more comprehensive manner and have bipartisan support. And I look forward to seeing those above the ones we currently have. So I'm going to be supporting the inexpedient to legislate on this one. Representative Selig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to recognize the representative who presented us with this bill. Her intention was very good and clear. I think as a new representative, she got a little overextended in the number of things she attempted to incorporate into this bill, and that she recognized that there might be others that would be ones she would be happy to continue to support. And so I just want to recognize her intent and dedication to the process, and recognize that while I hope we will move forward towards supporting similar measures, that I agree this one is probably a bit overextended.
Thank you. And I would second that and add to it that as a committee, we believe in the good intentions of every representative who brings a piece of legislation forward. And they have the best interests of the public at heart, and it's our job to help them do it in the best way possible. Representative Newman.
My comment deals with the situations where we have many bills that have good parts to them, and we just retained a situation like that in order that we could look all of the bills on the same subject. So my own personal feeling is that we should probably retain this bill and use the same process on this category of bills. And so I will be voting against the ITL.
Can I second that?
Thank you. And you're not wrong. However, there's only so many months in the summer, and unless you want to spend them all here, we wouldn't be able to retain all these. There is, as I said, another set of bills working their way through another committee that a lot of the work will be done for us as far as vetting and distilling down the best parts. And I think that bill or those bills had a head start, and they have bipartisan support and from both bodies. So I think for us to try and work parallel tracks at the same time, it's not going to end the way we hope it would. So I respect your opinion on that, though. Representative Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I agree with what you just said. I don't want to be here all summer, and I respect the intentions of this bill and support the legalization of marijuana and hope that some form of legalization gets to the House floor and passes through the legislature. I don't think state-run cannabis stores is the way to move forward. The state-run liquor stores, I think, presents a problem already. There are many reports of corruption, and I think adding products for them to sell would not be the right thing for this legislature to do. I think moving forward with legalization in a more liberty-minded way, where it's about people who can grow at their homes and people who can possess and use marijuana if they have it, is the better way to go, rather than state-sanctioned stores selling marijuana. So I will vote for the ITL motion on this legislation.
Thank you. Representative Newell.
I would just like to, while I recognize all points and agree with a lot of them, on principle, I'm going to be voting against the ITL. And what I would like for people to keep in mind when we're talking about marijuana legalization, cannabis legalization and things like that, is the balance of the harm that is actually being done on behalf of it being illegal right now. People are suffering the consequences of that. People are sitting in jail. There's a variety of harms that are happening to people actively because of it being criminalized. So I just want to keep that in mind as far as the personal impact, as long as we wait and our inaction has consequences for citizens in New Hampshire.
Thank you, and I'll take that as your support of my bill lowering the penalties for first offense possession that will be coming. Representative Bolden.
Legalize it, but I support ITL. We know what the Liquor Commission is today, and that it was created when a substance was re-legalized. And I think that arguments I've heard from stakeholders in cannabis legalization, they make a good point that people impacted by the criminalization of possession of cannabis should have the opportunity to participate in its legal commerce to kind of reverse the wrongs of decades of, or I guess at this point a century of criminalization, especially in the way that it's affected certain populations of people. And so to hand it over to the Liquor Commission would deny a large portion of those opportunities, with the exception of stocking shelves. So that's why I'm going to support ITL. Thanks.
Thank you. And my heart is warmed by the unanimous support of the free market. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to mention, I think that the idea of state-run cannabis is not inherently bad, considering we're a state that tries to avoid income tax and other increases on our population, but that we also are a state that is seeking more streams of revenue. And as of right now, anyone in New Hampshire who wants to access cannabis can drive simply 20 minutes over the border and bring it back into our state. So we are giving that revenue to the states surrounding New Hampshire. Because of that, I will be voting ITL, or voting against the ITL.
Thank you. Representative Wheeler.
I would just, for my friend Representative Murray, urge her and anyone interested in the Liquor Commission and what they're doing to go to the Finance Committee Division 1 and talk to Representative Peter Leishman. He can go in depth on the corruption of the Liquor Commission, and I will just reaffirm that this is not something we should be.
We will, I'd ask you to refrain from asserting that any official state agency is corrupt at this point, please. Thank you.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just would like to say maybe it would be worthwhile for us to investigate instituting a cannabis commission.
You are free to write any bill you so desire. At this point, I will ask you to call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Sellers,
Yes.
Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Tenzar,
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
No.
Representative Newman.
No.
The clerk votes no. Representative Newell,
No.
Representative Selig,
Yes, I guess, yes.
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy.
Chair votes yes.
All right, 16 yes, 4 no, motion passes.
Okay, that cannot go on consent. So, yeah, that's true. Will there be a minority report? Who would like to write that? Who spoke
I'll-
most vociferously?
Voted against it.
You got the majority, minority report?
You all right?
Yes.
Okay. So
Could you just go over the timing for the completion of the report?
if you
In
could,
this
yeah,
new session?
if you could get it to me by the middle of next week, by Wednesday morning, that would be great.
That's not a problem. Today would have been a problem.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that to you. And who made the motion?
I did.
Pratt, Representative Pratt, will you be writing the report for the committee?
Yes.
Thank you. At this point, I will close the public hearing on executive session. I've held so many public hearings lately. HB 643, and open the public hearing on HB 16, the executive session on HB 160, and recognize Representative Harry Gathright for a motion.
I moved to ITL 160, HB 160.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Thank you. Representative Gathert, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I understand the intent of the bill. However, no matter what the crime, I truly believe that the description of anything, whether it's mental illness or anything else, or in how would I say that? In dealing with the crime, that discretion should go to the judge. I don't believe that we as lawmakers should write laws to say what the judge can't do and can do. So I felt it was a discretionary issue because, oh, Judge. Right.
Just making sure because you're saying what a judge saying the town can.
No, I was saying that I believe that a judge should
Oh,
make
okay.
make the call, not, us as lawmakers here. That's what I was saying. So the other piece of that is that we had heard testimony of a couple towns that, in specific as to what the issue was. And then I also had an issue that there were two males, honestly, that came here to with a bill like that. So I just didn't like the bill all across the town. I have 13 grandchildren, and I definitely feel that they don't need to be walking down the street in Nashua and seeing women or anybody topless, to be honest with you, because for me, they probably should have came with a bill to arrest the person, the male as well, if they were topless. I don't feel as though they should be walking around without shirts as well. So I'm definitely against the bill. So I moved to ITL it.
Thank you, Representative Gathert. Representative Rhodes, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with everything my colleague and friend said, and I just think what are we doing here, right? I just don't think that anybody in society should be walking around without a shirt on, and I agree. I don't think that males should be doing it either, and I think we need to think of our youth and exactly what kind of message that we're sending. So pretty much it.
Representative Murray.
I would just, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to remind the committee that it is already legal in the state of New Hampshire to be topless, whether in Nashua, Manchester, etc. It is already legal. This bill would just override the local ordinances by towns like Laconia, and I believe Milford is the other one, who have local ordinances that prohibit female toplessness. But across the state of New Hampshire, it is already legal for anybody to be topless.
Thank you for that reminder. Representative Salick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to admit, I am extremely conflicted about this bill. On one hand, I oppose discrimination in all of its forms. And I agree, if we're going to have a bill about who should wear shirts, it should be, or cover their nipples, it should be everyone. So, Representative Hines could provide both men and women with pasties if needed. But ultimately, what comes down to for me and where I'm really concerned is the idea that we should be overriding a municipal ordinance. And I spoke with the representative from the one of the municipal associations to just get a better sense of how this would impact if this bill would essentially set a precedent for our overriding local statutes and local ordinances. And his feeling was that it potentially does that. And so I honestly don't know how I'm going to vote when we get to the vote, but I really am struggling with the concept of overriding what a town believes in its best interest. Just as I know, like in the town where I live, we have ordinances that are very specific because they're directly relevant to how our town is structured, that it would be completely irrelevant in the towns of anyone else who serves on this committee.
Good points. Representative Janvrin.
Thankfully, I'm not conflicted. I represent Hampton, and part of that is Hampton Beach. Hampton Beach State Park has an annual event, Free the Nipple. So to go a little bit further into that, I've served on the municipal budget committee, municipal planning board, and I realized that New Hampshire is a Dillon state, Dillon rule state. So if the state doesn't give you, if the state has been silent, the legislature has been silent, that's a prohibition for a municipality, that covers cities and towns, from passing any type of ordinance in that subject matter. And whereas this legislature has never spoken against displaying of the chest, these municipalities should not be passing ordinances in that effect. So I won't be voting for the ITL. As a matter of fact, I'd offer to write a minority report.
Thank you, Representative. And your point is also well taken. However, I would assume in that state, we would, under those circumstances, the courts would be the one to resolve whether or not they are authorized or within their rights to, under Dillon's rule state, to be doing that. Representative Newell.
I would like to just comment on the idea that we, on the state level, in my opinion, what we do is we set a level playing field. And what's happening in these towns is that there are ordinances being made that are explicitly sexist and based on the perception and sexualization of a woman's body. And I think that yes, I will be voting against the ITL because I think that it is our responsibility in this body to set a level playing field when individual municipalities may make ordinances that go against that fundamental value.
Thank you. I would again reiterate, though, that we did set a level playing field. This is a Dillon rule state, and the answer to that is through the judicial branch. If a local municipality passes an ordinance that they are not within their rights to pass, it would be up to the judicial branch to look at that and say, you can't do that. If we were to write laws trying to cover every municipality that passes something that we don't think they should, we would be playing whack-a-mole up here writing bills every year. But your point is well taken. Representative Harry Gathright. Oh, and I saw you, Representative Murphy. You'll be next. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I also wanted to mention that, remember he gave testimony and he sent us the documentation for, he had gone to the local court and to the Supreme Court, and they both ruled against him. So, just.
Thank you. Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, that was what I was going to say. As a member of a town governing body myself, I recognize that certain issues pertain maybe only to certain communities. And this isn't one for my community, but for communities that it impacts. I would hate to see that local control removed. So I will be supporting an ITL. And secondly, I think reading the the Supreme Court judgment, which was issued in February 2019, it helped for me to confirm my views on it. So thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Wheeler.
Just really quickly, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say I appreciate everything that's been said. For me, I'm voting against the ITL motion because I don't think that not being shirtless should be illegal. I think whether you're and right now you're being a man and being shirtless is illegal. You can do that, and we should equalize it. And being shirtless should not be a crime.
I would ask you how long you would go outside right now shirtless.
Well, I will. It'll be the polar plunge,
The clerk will call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Sellers,
Yes.
Representative Janvrin,
No.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Tenzar,
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
I'm sorry, remind me of the motion.
ITL.
No.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes no. Representative Newell,
No.
Representative Selig,
No.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy.
Chair votes yes.
Motion passes 14 yay, 6 nay.
Representative Janman, you'll be writing the minority report?
Yes, and the
And-
minority report will be OTP.
Yeah, and if I could have it by Tuesday at noon, I'd appreciate it. And who will be writing the majority? Who made the motion? Representative Gathright. If you could, Tuesday at noon, please. This time I'll close the executive session on HB 160 and this one's okay. And open the executive session on HB 201. And I will recognize Representative Stone for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to recommend motioning to ITL House Bill 201,
Second.
which is
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Representative Stone, would you like to speak to your motion?
Mr. Chair, I would. House Bill 201 would be going backwards in regards to public safety. The operation of a motor vehicle is a serious action that can result in serious bodily injury or death. A lot of times we take it for granted, operating a motor vehicle, and I think the penalties that are currently in existence are sufficient.
Representative Rhodes, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you get a driver's license, there are a set of rules that you agree to abide by, and having it renewed is one of them. And I do believe that, we have all get busy and, oh my gosh, your birthday month comes and goes and you didn't go down and have your license renewed. But honestly, if you are to be pulled over for that, which I admittedly have been, I had the opportunity to go do that. But to just not let it go and to have an excuse for that and to just make that all be okay, I don't agree with. And I think that it's pretty evident when you get your license that that's what you have to do.
Thank you. Discussion. Representative Salig.
Thank you. I disagree with ITL. I believe this motion ought to pass. I think about the number of immigrants who come to our country, whether as refugees or through other channels, who may not have fully understood all of our laws and may inadvertently violate this law because it's not similar to something in their own country, and that for them to be convicted, I believe it's right now a felony. It's something high level for a first offense at this point. I believe the penalty currently is too strong. I also think about the fact that I have a teenager who's learning to drive, and it's hypothetically possible that we might have started before the day she turned 15 and a half. And this law would technically put her in the same category in terms of the levels of violations. And I think it's too strong.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that we should, I will be voting against the ITL. I believe that this bill should be ought to pass as the wording allows for further to increase penalties for those who have repeated offenses against driving without a license, but it would only change the first time violation to not be a Class B misdemeanor. And I think that allows for understandable mistakes such as a teenager taking out their parent's car or someone forgetting to renew their license. I don't think someone who, forgets to renew their license should get a Class B misdemeanor for being busy during the normal business hours that a DMV is open. And I think lowering the initial penalty and leaving the increased penalty for repeated offenses is a good way to logically address this.
I would just point out to the members who have spoken that currently, if you do make that mistake, or your teenager makes that mistake, or a new arrival to our country makes that mistake, the first offense is a violation. It's not a misdemeanor, not a felony. It's a violation, which is just a fine. So really, That is not something that would be alleviated by this bill under the current one. No, this is the old text. This is the new. So just asking that you keep that in mind and compare the two versions of the bill before you make your mind. Representative Pratt.
I have a friend who became a citizen. Part of the naturalization process was for them to learn the laws and a lot of the taxes they have to pay. And that's a big section of what they have to learn, is make sure they pay their taxes, make sure they follow the laws. So that's part of the naturalization process that he went through, and it was very important that you go through that process. Without that process, this could happen. So I'm against it.
Representative Newman.
My concern would not be, is mostly for the people that were brought to this country when they were infants or no, so, and do not have the capability to get a driver's license legally that I know of. There may be some states that have passed laws that allowed them to have driver's license, which I think is the correct thing to do. So therefore, I'm going to vote, and I have to remember which way that is.
I will take you at your word.
I will vote. And yeah, I'm going to vote against the ITL.
Thank you. Representative Newell.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to vote against the ITL. And I think, you know, I consider it essentially a clerical error, one that I've been guilty of many times. There are so many situations in which just forgetting to go to the DMV, not having the money to renew your license. There's a variety of reasons why someone would just innocently not be able to renew their license or you know, be on the up and up paperwork wise. I mean, at the end of the day, it's paperwork. So yeah, I think lowering the penalties and understanding that there are so many different reasons without putting someone in the situation where they have to demonstrate those reasons is probably the right default in my opinion.
Thank you. Is the sponsor of this bill present? The committee would like to invite you to, if you wouldn't mind, as we're having a little confusion and discussion about the bill.
And here I was trying, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Representative George Sykes from Lebanon, New Hampshire. I represent Grafton, Grafton 14 now, it changed with the last redistricting, which is Ward 2. I am the prime sponsor of this bill, and thank you for consideration. I actually tried to be a little bit incognito. My only purpose in coming this morning was to, Mr. Chairman, you were kind enough to understand that because of various personal medical issues for family, I was not able to come and introduce the bill originally. And I wanted to show respect to the committee that it matters to me what you're trying to do here, and that's why I showed up today. If you had some questions, I don't have a copy of the bill with me. I'll try to answer them if you wish. But anyways, there we are.
Would anyone like to inquire of the sponsor? Representative Murray.
Am I correct in my understanding of the bill that it would change it so anyone who has never had a license in the state of New Hampshire, was pulled over for driving without, that valid license, would then only get a violation instead of a Class B misdemeanor? And anyone who had a driver's license that was expired, it does not change the current law, which is that they would only get a violation on a Class B misdemeanor. So really it's only changing for those who have not had a license yet.
That is my understanding as well. first time, if your license expires and you get stopped for the first time, it is still a violation. If you continue to not get your driver's license, then it would move into a misdemeanor. Thank you for the question.
Representative Murphy, would you like to inquire?
Nope, somebody to your left.
Representative Muse, would you like to inquire of the sponsor?
Yes. For an undocumented person to actually be charged and convicted of a Class B felony, what does that do to their immigration status?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So there is a connection, obviously. If a person were to be undocumented and be stopped and then charged with not having a driver's license, it would be a misdemeanor, but it would then typically trickle down to immigration issue as well. So far in the questions that have been asked, and I'm not sure, and my apologies, I wasn't here for the hearing, so I don't quite know what you all heard that day, but I would.
Apparently neither do we, so
Well,
you're okay.
Yeah, but I would like to remind everyone too that one of the issues about driver's license issues is typically problems with getting your driver's license on time or getting your license at all sometimes is a financial issue as well. And there's a certain amount of people where it becomes more difficult if you're poor. And this would help in that regard as well. It's not just about a narrowly defined issue. But thank you for allowing me to testify now.
Representative Rhodes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to confirm, because it's my understanding, you can renew your driver's license online now, right? You don't have to actually go during certain hours to the DMV while they're open? Is that
Yes, you are. Okay. You can. Thank you for the question. You can renew your driver's license once online. You can't do it forever, but you can do it once. Look at the Representative Hill, who's on transportation with me. So
Representative Newell?
I would just acknowledge that while these things seem like small barriers of, online access, the financial barrier, I mean, these are impediments to people in difficult situations. While maybe none of us on this committee have been in a situation where that was significant enough to be a significant barrier to you, but I've been in that situation in the past. So, I mean, I think it's good to take that into account. Not everybody has the means that we necessarily do.
Okay. Thank you for your assistance. And Representative Newman, would you like to inquire?
I just have one question about something that you testified to. That if someone does not have a license and they are stopped for the first time, did you say that was a misdemeanor or could be a misdemeanor somehow because of another law? Because I'm thinking that might
No, yes, an expired first stop is a violation, but a no driver's license first time, my understanding is that would move to misdemeanor. And the only other thing, if you would indulge me, Mr. Chairman, you've been so kind. This bill came about as a result of a study committee that transportation undertook, and one of the participants, in fact, the primary driver behind this was Chief Justice Nadeau, who this was one of her recommendations, that the legislature try and achieve this purpose. And so there was a lot going on why this bill has been introduced. And thank you. And again, I appreciate everyone's indulgence, and thank you to the committee.
Thank you very much. Also, thank you to the Transportation Committee Study Committee to give a bill to criminal justice. That was very kind of you. Yes, Representative Mannion.
Just some clarification. This is how I understand. The current bill is if you're expired, which you have a license, it's just expired, your first offense is a violation. Second offense will be a Class B misdemeanor in a 12-month period, I believe it is. The current bill also says that if you've never had a license and you're driving, without regard to getting a license, that first offense is a B misdemeanor. This law moves to change that so that in both cases, it's a violation for first offense, B misdemeanor for second offense. I don't know if that clarifies it for people.
It does, and I would, my comment on that is, I don't think that we should be treating people who went to the trouble to get their driver's license, go to driving school, spend an enormous amount of money to do that, and go through the process, the same as someone who never bothered to do any of those things. One is a misdemeanor because they never even acknowledge the responsibility to get a driver's license, which puts the entire motoring public at danger because they obviously aren't insured. If you operate a motor vehicle with no driver's license, it's dubious as to whether or not the insurance company will cover you in the event of an accident. So there are a lot of things. I understand the impact it can have on someone who may be new to the country or into the country in an undocumented status. But we, as a policy committee, should not be writing laws to accommodate people who aren't necessarily here following the rules because they don't understand it. I mean, I have empathy for that situation, but at the same time, I have empathy for the motoring public who could be injured by someone and have no insurance to cover them if they or their family are hurt. Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to share with the committee some of my own personal experience with this. I was homeschooled here in New Hampshire, and I grew up in a rural area. And since I was homeschooled, I didn't have access to driving school at public school, and my parents didn't have the money to pay for me to go to driver's school. And so I didn't get my license until I was 19. And even though I mostly biked or walked everywhere, occasionally I did have to, under extreme circumstances, drive my parents' car without a license. And I did get pulled over once, but because I was driving safely and the cops knew me, I was not charged with anything. But I would just like to remind the committee that this definitely impacts young people in New Hampshire, especially in these rural areas, especially those who are homeschooled, who don't have access to driving school or for other reasons maybe not able to get their license until they're older.
I agree, and I actually supported a bill that would allow parents to legally give driver's eds, but that met an unfortunate demise. I would agree with you. I too grew up in a small community. I never got my driver's license until I actually joined the Army, and I got my first driver's license. I believe it was an M577 tank that I was first licensed to drive, and then a Jeep and a Humvee and several other things. The point being, I didn't have the money for any of that, and I ended up getting it in the military first. But to think that we would say, well, it's tough, so this certain people you don't have to, it's extremely troubling. And again, I go back to the insurance issue that really worries me, is if you end up with a child in another vehicle who is equally as poor as the person who couldn't afford to get their license, now is a paraplegic for the rest of their life, and how is that family going to afford to take care of that child with no insurance coverage because the other person decided that they didn't need to get a license? Representative Salig.
Thank you. I just would like to add, for several years, the University of New Hampshire did a partnership with a university in China where we had a huge number of students coming. And in their country, driver's licenses are not part of their culture at all. So these students came here and truly did not know based on their experience. So we had a series of circumstances of them driving not necessarily safely, and they were all stopped for that. And it was determined that they did not understand, based on the immigration process, all of which was done completely legally with visas and all of the due process that was appropriate, but no one had given them the information. They weren't trying to evade anything, but a misdemeanor for something like that would have compromised their visas, forced them not to be able to pay their extensive high-level tuition to UNH, among other things. And so an education plan was put in place so that when they arrived, there was a whole program in order to teach them and educate them, so it stopped the practice. Again, to give them a misdemeanor for something that really should have been a violation that could be used as an educational experience was really would not have been appropriate. So again, there are all sorts of different circumstances. I don't dispute that there are people who knowingly violate this law and violate it on a regular basis, which is why for second, third, and fourth offenses, I think it's appropriate to have much steeper penalties. But I do believe that people should be afforded an opportunity to understand, okay, I violated this particular provision, whether knowingly or unknowingly, but not with the intent of harming someone. Obviously, if they're driving recklessly, that's a whole separate set of conditions. That's different from just not having your physical license. And so if someone is driving recklessly, that they should be certainly charged with that as a separate, whatever the word is. I'm sorry, my offense. Thank you. Sorry, haven't had enough coffee today. And we should recognize that. But this specific thing, I believe this, I support that this should pass.
Thank you. I understand about the Chinese immigrants. It's interesting that they don't, in their culture, don't have to have that. Apparently, they don't have anything about floating giant spy balloons over our country either, because there's one over Montana right now.
I would say that is, while that is true and probably not relevant, we also have a huge number of spy elements of our own over their country.
And they do not hesitate to shoot them down. Representative Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to remind the committee that the reason to get a license is it measures your knowledge. You have to pass a written test, and additionally, you have to pass a practical test to make sure that you are safe and roadworthy. Those two requirements are very important to be issued a license. And I think by negating that, you would be creating a really hazardous condition for public safety overall. Thank you.
I think Representative Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just because somebody gets stopped and perhaps, get a misdemeanor, doesn't mean they're going to tell it to the judge, and it doesn't mean it's going to stick. So if if the people who were stopped without a license felt that they did it, the judge can make the determination, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Just because it says here that's the punishment does not by any stretch of the imagination mean it's actually going to happen. I think the police would be the first to agree with that. And so you have several levels of discretion. The police officer can use his discretion not to write a citation or make the complaint. You have the district attorney who might also null pros the complaint. Then you have the judge who might say, okay, so you've got three levels at least of people who are going to look at that who could say, okay, this is, clearly they didn't understand. So for us to put a broad brush and say we're going to take that discretion away because we don't trust that system, to me is disturbing. Representative Murray, and that'll be the last one because I think we agree where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to emphasize to the committee the fact that this only addresses the first violation. If there were another instance of driving without a license within a 12-month period, they would get a Class B misdemeanor. So this is not encouraging any type of conditions for people to be driving around without a license recklessly and getting pulled over and over again without consequences. And also to address Representative Muse's question earlier about how a Class B misdemeanor could impact immigrants. It is not automatic grounds for expulsion from the country, but it can lead to that.
Thank you. I would ask the clerk to call the roll at this point. And the motion on the floor is inexpedient to legislate.
Vice Chair Rhodes?
Yes.
Representative Pratt?
Yes.
Representative Hill?
Yes.
Representative Sellers?
Yes.
Representative Janvrin?
Yes.
Representative Mannion?
Yes.
Representative Reed? Representative Stone?
Yes.
Representative Tenzar?
Yes.
Representative Harry Gathright? Representative Muse?
No.
Representative Bolden?
No.
Representative Bradley?
No.
Representative Murphy?
No.
Representative Newman?
No.
The clerk votes no. Representative Newell?
No.
Representative Selig?
No.
Representative Wheeler? Chairman Roy?
Chair votes yes.
10-10.
The motion fails. I would remind you that it's open now to another motion. However, I would anticipate the vote will be exactly the same. So does anyone wish to make another motion? Representative Selig.
I move the motion ought to pass.
Got that? I'm going to put on my amazing Kreskin hat and anticipate a 10-10. Representative Selig, would you like to speak to your motion?
I believe this motion ought to pass for all the reasons that I explained in our previous conversation.
That was very kind of you. Representative Harriet Gathright, would you like to speak to your second?
Only just to remind you again that at the committee again that it's a first offense. So I really think the violation was the correct, whatever.
Representative Murray.
I also would just, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to remind the committee that this bill came out of a study committee from the Transportation Committee. And I think that we can trust that they've done the work necessary to study all these implications of this bill.
Representative Muse.
I also wanted to just remind everybody really quickly that we're not talking about waiving a penalty here. So people who actually commit this crime are not going to go unpunished. A violation, it'll be a violation level offense, and I think one of the reasons for us to pretty strongly consider something like that is the impact that it can actually do to somebody's immigration status. This is something that can get you sent out of the country, and many times somebody who's new to the country is in a financial situation where maybe it's everything that they can afford to be able to buy a car. And the only way they're going to make their car payments is if they're able to take that car to work and they can continue to be employed. So it's a very difficult balancing act that folks have to go through. But just a reminder that if they're pulled over and they're stopped, they're still subject to a penalty. We're not, this is not the equivalent of a get out of jail free card. But what I do think it is a more sensible and appropriate penalty for somebody who's being charged for the first time. And I think this is a question that really comes up a lot in our committee when it comes to penalties for first time offenders. To what extent do we want somebody who's a first time offender to go through life with a criminal record? And is this offense really, does it reach that level? And I know we've had extensive debate as to whether or not it does or not. But I do think, the fact that people are going to be penalized is just something that we really do need to remember.
Thank you. Representative Hill, do you have any input into this? Being your origin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick things. One is, while it did go through a study committee, I'm trying in vain to find actually what the outcome of the study committee was. It may have just entered the study committee and come out as no recommendation, and I don't have that in front of me, and I can't find it quickly. But there are, it's not necessarily an immigration issue, and I will tell you that we are currently battling this same question or tangentially this same question in transportation. I'm not sure if we're dealing with the cart before the horse or not. The penalty before we get to the point of determining how we handle those here illegally and applying for asylum, or those that are here illegally and driving illegally. It really is the second offense that we're dealing with. They're here illegally and they're driving illegally. So I will be supporting, well, now I will be voting against the ought to pass, and I'm sure we're going to end up in the same spot, and we're all saying the same thing for this motion as we did in the past motion. So I would assume we're going to end up with no recommendation. Thank you.
And thank you. I appreciate, given your role in transportation, adding to the discussion. I think, Representative Selig.
Sorry, the one other thing, I just was thinking about Representative Reed's comment in the previous discussion about the person can take their misdemeanor to the prosecutor and to the judge and to everything else. And in all of the testimony we've heard, it's been about how overwhelmed the prosecutor's office is, how overwhelmed the public defender's office is, and how overwhelmed our judicial system is. And so if we're saying that something that's a relatively minor issue that should, for first offense only, I'm not talking about subsequent offenses, but that could be handled as without needing the court system, would ultimately save all of those systems tremendous amounts of money as well as time, and just something else to be considered.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to close the discussion by just reminding everyone, the main reason for my position is that it could potentially set up not only the operator, but the people that, if they're involved in an accident, any kind of insurance coverage for whatever happens horrifically. And that to me is a very, very, very serious thing when you can end up with someone with medical bills for the rest of their lives who is equally as poor or potentially even also an immigrant, and not have coverage because of that. So with that, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. And a reminder that the motion on the floor is ought to pass.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
No.
Representative Pratt,
No.
Representative Hill,
No.
Representative Sellers,
No.
Representative Janvrin,
No.
Representative Mannion,
No.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
No.
Representative Tenzar,
No.
Representative Harriet Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy,
Chair votes no.
10-10.
Once again, I am Nostradamus. And with that, I will. Who is going to be voting? Right. So it comes with no recommendation. So we would each, I believe, write a report. So who would like to write the report for the OTP? No, it's automatic. I suppose you will. Okay, so by Tuesday at noon, if you don't mind. And who would like to write it? Who made the first motion? Representative Stone, would you write it? Thank you very much. And with that, I will close the public hearing on, what was this bill? HB 201?
Mr. Chair.
Executive session, HB 201.
Can we take a 10-minute recess?
I was about to say we are going to take a 15-minute bio break.
So I'll find out. This was just through me. But it ended up okay. Say it. Yeah. 15 minutes call.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You have my phone?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know why. I don't know. So, like, I think the jobs that figure out what the
Yeah.
So, I talked to the manager just, yeah, we need to set up a time to.
Sure. Well, you would do it after this?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think we won't be too late.
I really.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, we're,
Representative Six.
oh, yeah, yeah, it's short, rationale for why we, why we, well, excuse me.
Hey there. Having fun yet?
I gotta control my emotions, it's a little hard to, would you like a cookie?
No.
Sure?
You got a bunch of them? I'll have one if you have a bunch of them.
I do.
I know you said it dropped. I didn't want to take it only for you.
There's more, and I have a good flow in my jaw.
Oh, did you
I have
say?
snacks, yeah.
Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I take this legislator class on Thursdays, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they said, you never let your ego get in the way, you never
Right.
let your emotion get in
Right.
the way, but it's so hard.
Is that going from John?
Yeah.
Nah. So when I was a fire chief, he used to do a lot of work in Raymond, so I know over there.
Yeah.
That's why you gave me a shout out when you would hear that.
Mhm. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable, but I was fine controlling my emotions up until the middle concern for the concern our people, and
Yeah.
driving is a privilege, not a right, and the
So
people
there's
taken to
a very big difference between forgetting and renewing your license, because you want to prove the right drive,
Right.
and never having a license and arrogantly driving around the country, so whatever.
And
You
what
need a
if,
car.
right, true.
Yeah.
I never even thought of that part. And what if I went to China and did something broke there? I'd be
It's up
hard
to me and
labor.
I'll chop it, put off whatever you do, you know?
Right.
And,
You know, but you
there
know,
would be no consideration.
right.
My brother, this is kind of related, my brother was in Texas, not Texas, Roadhouse, for Longhorn, and he has put a lot of work in putting it over, fixed it all up, made it really nice. And in the parking lot, somebody came running in, hey, somebody just backed into your car and taken off. He goes running out there, and some people had already stopped him. Illegally, it's in Manchester, or none of them had a license. None of them. One of them had insurance, he brought it in insurance, but he was taken off. So they stopped him and called the cops. And they said, well, here's a card that they have. And I said, safety insurance. It's like, my brother's like, oh my God. You know, they did pay for the damages, but they were trying to take off. So the police, you know, it would be thrown in the back of the cruiser and take a pay to try to take off. But these guys, you know, said, well, no license, no registration. Why don't you just drive back to your house and park it? My brother says, what? You're in the business city of Manchester and you're going to have no license, drive across town? Talk to me. That's our job, get back in your car. So my brother is being penalized and penalized, screamed at. And these guys are going to drive across town with
It's got free.
yeah. So if they smash up again, you know, they got no license, and never have to even show up for what.
Right.
If I'm going too far, back to Drake, should never have let what happened before that happened. And now we should not be making laws to make it happen more.
Right. I agree with you, Kevin, 100%. And you know, and I'm tired of hearing, we don't have enough staff, the system's overburdened. But how, the conflict there is they said crime's down, right?
Yeah.
But they're still overwhelmed. And as a nurse, since 1991, we've worked short staff, short supply.
The nurses are the most work. Yeah.
You have a job to do, you do it, whether you're understaffed
Yeah.
or not. That's not an excuse.
No, they really dump on the nurses. They really haven't stepped up to help them. Nurses are working always over. Emergency rooms
And
always
it's,
work.
and it's a safe, and those are people's lives you deal with, and they get the job done.
Yeah.
So, it's, even though that's.
So that's just the beginning. If we give them a pass on that, we'll get a pass on everything else. They don't pay the electric bill. Oh well, we'll let them say
It's a
guy
hardship.
next door, power will go off. Guy that works for a living, girl that works for a living, their power will go off. This person illegal, so they don't have money. Something about it'll just be like that all the way down the line. I believe in that story.
Right.
I'd say give them a free plane ticket. They can't.
So, yeah, I agree with you. It's
Let
not
them
fair.
run around down there without license. Some of these people probably, like the Chinese people, they will never even have a driver's license to begin with. So if they come over here, they've never had experience behind a wheel.
It's a very scary thought, isn't it?
In some countries, they probably used to drive around the other side of the road.
Right.
They have different
Right.
laws.
In India, imagine they drive different in India
Yeah.
than they do here.
Yeah, they can drive any piece of junk down there.
Right.
It doesn't even have to have a sticker on it. It can be a motorcycle with, and they put all kinds of junk on it, everything else. It's just scary how the country
It is.
thinks.
It is.
I'm just appalled that it came out 10 to 10. I would have thought,
I think the kid next to me said he was going to learn the way we were, and then I guess they pulled it with the
you looked at it.
I just feel that we're going to end up being a six-gun city style country, and it's,
So we have a problem in Raymond. We're really close to Massachusetts.
Right.
Lawrence is land. Every time there's a drug arrest in Raymond, there's a Lawrence person involved. And, we have a big campground in Raymond, so a lot of people come up here and camp in that campground. And some of them say, I've been here 10 years, I've been here 20 years, but I didn't in the campground. They have scenes and the whole thing.
Right.
Put the trailer there and never move it. They start building around it. They've got rooms on them and everything else.
And they live there year-round?
Yeah. No, well, they don't. They're supposed to be out there in the winter time.
Okay.
So it belongs back to Massa someplace. But a lot of them go to Flop Park, Hampton Beach. What happens is the rent drops down to like a third in the winter time.
Okay, interesting.
Then in the summertime it triples. So you pay the week down here. A lot of places you pay by the week.
Okay.
For your mortgage, your rent.
Right.
And then
But people have had these issues, right?
Yeah.
For many years.
Well, the people involved for years. There's people that have problems. And if you have enough money to buy a car, you should have enough money to buy a license. And the most important thing of it, if they wanted to make the license free, I wouldn't mind that. Just make it so that you have to pass a test, a driving test, and a written test. Once you can show you stay between the lines, you stop at a stop sign and use your directional like they never do.
What is this? What is this?
It's
I don't
$1.
really need any more paper.
That it's referred to in this guy.
I think they ought to have jail time for not using your direction. So I think.
I just,
Right, every day.
we're trying to have a civilized society, and you can't have a civilized society without rules and laws.
It's like these retarded idea of putting in rotaries everywhere.
Putting in rotaries?
Yeah, they only work because polite people. And they don't even work because everybody has a different opinion of how you should be coming around them. Some people let them in, some people don't let them in.
comical.
No, wicked. It's like, how would we build a demolition derby?
Yeah.
And then more money than a regular intersection. You have a primary road, you put stop signs on the secondary road, and you just let traffic control itself. But to put these rotaries, it's just stupid. You got big trucks trying to go around them and taking up 2 lanes, and they're so sharp. Like Durham, they were so stupid in Durham. They made 2 down there, and the ladder truck they have can't get around unless they drive up on the curb,
Right.
which is not good for their tires. It's all cobblestones.
Right,
and it's
right.
Like this. So they didn't even build them for a ladder truck to go around. It just teased me off. They're doing it to Raymond. They've got 2 entrances to Raymond, and they made them T-generous. So you have to actually, my ladder truck used to cut across 1 lane, 2 lanes to get out of the corner. And it's just not designed. What if somebody stops where they're supposed to stop, and now your rear wheels come around them? It's just stupid. Buses can't go down easily.
Not well thought
They wanna
out.
make it they want to make it a nice little village, you know. The,
Aesthetic.
well, vehicles aren't nice little vehicles anymore, you know. When they had custom wagon delivering your fuel oil, it was small, but now they got these giant 2,000-gallon fuel trucks and propane trucks.
Yeah,
Buses
right.
are bigger than they ever were, like
Mhm.
30 more students. And then you think that you're gonna make the road nice and cute. They made a sidewalk all the way down Main Street, and it cost as much for the sidewalk as it did for the road. And they made it like 6 feet wide, they made 3 feet of it grass, they put trees in it.
So it looked good.
Oh, it's a Portsmouth design, that's what I call it. And the trees are directly underneath the wires. So when they grow up, they will be a problem.
Right.
How can they not figure that out, you know? Let's talk about sidewalks, how they're stupid enough to put a tree right underneath the wires all the time, over and over again in our town. And eventually that tree will grow up. Eventually we'll have to cut it off or put a hole through it. And
Right.
it will look terrible.
Right.
Or it'll just go up through the wires and it'll be a problem. It's just, they do it over and over again. So I can't be smart enough.
And no thought put into it.
No. So the old sidewalk was raised, and the plow truck would go down and clean it off
Right,
at the
right.
last pass.
Right.
School was open, the sidewalk was open. Now where they got grass and trees in there, they did it with a snow blower. The guy that was doing it got burned. He was just 1 year with so many snowstorms that he was trying to go back and forth, keep it, and they had to camp
At this time, I'm opening the executive session on House Bill 291. And I recognize Representative Rhodes for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion of ITL for House Bill 291.
I'll second.
Thank you. Representative Rhodes, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, while I do believe on the surface, it certainly is in line with, the thoughts of it's not okay to go to a department and lie and make false accusations. It puts the department out to have to do investigation. All the employees, it's not sending an okay message that it's okay to go make these false reports. But on the other hand, it was very specific to really one department. And I think overall that the general census is that, most people are not doing that. And sometimes I think that might be a vengeance situation, but I don't think that we want to set laws based on just vengeance.
Representative Harry Gathright, would you like to speak to your second?
I think it was well said.
Open for discussion. Seeing none, I would simply say that I concur with the ITL. There are remedies currently in civil law for someone who slanders or makes false statements against a business or a person, and there are remedies for that. I know it's not the most convenient way to do it, but cherry picking agencies that are attach penalties to them, I think that it sets a bad precedent. So I'll follow along with that and go with an ITL. At this time, I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes?
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Sellers,
Yes.
Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Tenzar,
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy.
Chair votes yes.
Motion passes 20-0.
Any objection to consent? None. Consent it will be. I close the public hearing on HB 291. At this time, I'm going to open a public hearing. I'm going to call it a little out of order in deference to the sponsor who has to be somewhere else and wanted to be here for what we decide to do. And that is HB 144. And I recognize Representative Janvrin to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to retain House Bill 144
Is there-
and to appoint.
Is there a
subcommittee.
second?
Second.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I believe there's some merit to some offenses being specifically listed to allow restoring of firearm ownership. Not all felonies are violent, but some that were testified in the hearing, although they may not be nonviolent still, could be considered reasons why we wouldn't want to restore those rights. So I'd like to have a subcommittee to work on a list of what felonies we are talking about specifically.
Thank you. Representative Stone, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say that I think this bill deserves some further review and see what else we could come up with out of it, see if it's better streamlined.
Thank you. I would say that you both read my mind. And to that end, I'm going to appoint a subcommittee. If the vote to retain passes, and just to let you know who will be on that subcommittee, it will be representatives. Excuse me, I don't have that one. Where's he's supposed to be chairman? Janvrin. Thank you. And that subcommittee is going to be chaired by Representative Janvrin, and it's going to have on it Representatives Reed, Stone, Newell. Now, this isn't the right one. Okay. Janvrin, Tenzar, Stone, Murphy, and Wheeler. Does everyone make a note of that you're on that subcommittee? With that, as there's any more discussion, we'll go ahead and vote to retain. Seeing none, go ahead and call the roll. The motion is to retain.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Sellers,
Yes.
Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Tenzar,
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy.
Chair votes yes.
Motion passes 20-0.
Okay, so that bill is retained, and the mandate for the subcommittee is to come up with a detailed list of offenses that we feel we could allow the return of firearms rights to, and those to which we do not. And you can begin working on that as soon as you're able. At that point, I'm going to close the public hearing on HB 144, executive session on HB 144, and open the executive session on HB, what's the next one? 287. And I recognize Representative Mannion. Which one? Representative Mannion to make a motion.
I believe it's Reed on this one.
Excuse me, Representative Reed to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to retain Bill 287.
Second, anyone?
Tenzar seconds.
Representative Tenzer. Would you like to speak to your motion, Representative Reed?
Although this bill has merit, it deserves further study. Thank you.
Would you like to speak to your second, Representative Tenzer?
I agree with Representative Reed.
Any discussion? I'll add, we're going to appoint a subcommittee on this to work on this bill. Because we have two bills that basically do the same thing, and we want to spend just a little bit of time on that, and I'm making sure that we get the best parts of both of those bills. I think we all agree that it is a good idea to provide this testing ability, and we want to make sure, I understand there's a motion, an amendment coming, and I would like to take and look at both of them and congeal it into one bill. This will be a short subcommittee, and we should probably be able to deal with it rather quickly. Any more discussion? Representative Newell.
I agree that this and 287 should be considered and figure out the best way forward. I guess what I would just want to say is that we keep in mind the urgency of what getting this done in a timely manner.
I agree, but I think it's equally as important to make sure we come together as a committee and everyone agrees on it. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll. So,
Motion is retain. Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Sellers,
Yes.
same one.
Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Tenzar,
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman,
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy.
Chair votes yes.
Motion passes 19-1.
With that, HB 287 is retained, and I close the executive session. I open the executive session on HB 470 and recognize Representative Janvin for a motion.
My motion is also to retain this and put it to the SAM subcommittee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
I think it applies that both House Bill 470 and 287 have merits, and we'd like to reconcile the bills.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to your second?
I would concur.
Thank you. I would say that it's the same thing I just said. We like both bills, one perhaps a little more than the other, but I'd like to make sure that we take a moment and ensure that we come up with the best product that we can all support unanimously. And I will be appointing a subcommittee if we agree to retain this one. And on that subcommittee, it will be chaired by Representative Mannion, and it will have Representative Reed, Stone, Newell, and Muse. With that, any further discussion? Representative Murray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My suggestion to the committee would be to OTP this bill while we work on the other one. As Representative Newell mentioned earlier, this is an urgent issue that impacts people every day on whether or not they're taking drugs that are safe or not. And in my opinion, people could die if we don't pass legislation like this sooner.
I agree that it is an urgent bill. I have a quick question. Hold on a second. I'm going to ask the two people who made a motion if they'd be willing to withdraw it and then hear me out.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just looking now at the House deadlines. We have until March 16th to report this bill out.
Yep.
And I would agree. I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw.
Thank you. With that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recess the executive session on this, and we're going to have a committee work session, and we're going to hammer this out now, sometime in the next couple weeks, and come up with the product now rather than wait until January to come out with a. Does that make everyone feel a little bit better? I'm all about the warm and fuzzies. Okay, so we've withdrawn the motion to retain that bill. What we're going to do is I'm going to recess the executive session. I'm going to schedule a full committee work session. We're going to come in here to deal with just that bill, and we're going to merge it with the other bill and come up with the best product, and we're going to get it done this year, and we're going to bring it to the floor next month. Would you like me to not do that? Okay.
May I make a request, please? Just for people setting up subcommittee meetings, if they could just let the other people on the subcommittee have an idea of scheduling in with sufficient notice, especially on days we're not generally intended to be here, that would be really helpful.
If everyone who's in charge of the subcommittee heard that, please give your members adequate notice. And I will, this is going to be a full committee work session, not a subcommittee. So we'll all be here together. So bring your lunch. I'll let you know when it is. So with that, I am going to recess House Bill 470 and you will be notified of when the work session is. And with that, I'm going to open the the executive session on House Bill 292, I believe is next. And recognize 292 Representative Rhodes for motion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. If you could just give me 1 second.
Take your time.
I would like to make a motion of ITL for House Bill 292.
Thank you. Representative Rhodes, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As unfortunate as is that I think we all agree that sometimes there may be a meeting that we prefer had not taken place. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. This is more of a 91A issue. It is illegal to hold an illegal meeting already. But it is generally frowned upon by the entire legislative body to have personal penalties for an individual member of a board. And for that reason, I right to the quick is just to ITL it.
Representative Selig, would you like to speak to your second?
I agree.
Excellent. Discussion. I would just add that these are volunteer positions, and oftentimes the people that are doing it would not do it if they realized they were at such significant financial risk, regardless of whether or not they made a mistake or an intent. Representative Newman, you seem to be wanting to say something.
And I agree. I think that this bill should be ITL. But my reason for it is in section 2, line 9, where it gives any individual the private right to sue a public official when they did X, Y, or Z. And I think that kind of takes it out of the criminal justice system and puts it in the civil system. And I'm opposed to that kind of language in the bill.
Well, I think we all have our individual reasons, but we're coming to the same conclusion. With that, I will ask the clerk to call the roll. Motion on the floor is inexpedient to legislate.
Vice Chair Rhodes?
Yes.
Representative Pratt?
Yes.
Representative Hill?
Yes.
Representative Sellers?
Yes.
Representative Janvrin?
Yes.
Representative Mannion?
Yes.
Representative Reed? Representative Stone?
Yes.
Representative Tenzar?
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright? Representative Muse?
Yes.
Representative Bolden?
Yes.
Representative Bradley?
Yes.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Newman?
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell?
Yes.
Representative Selig?
Yes.
Representative Wheeler? Chairman Roy?
Chair votes yes.
Motion passes 20-0.
Any objection to consent? Being none, it's on consent. Close the executive session. And I open the executive session on HB 302. And I recognize Representative Mannion for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would make a motion to ITL HB 302.
Is there a second? Representative Stone, second. Oh, Representative Murphy did. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill requires Police Standards and Training Council to provide each candidate for law enforcement 8 hours of training in the the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and 8 hours in the New Hampshire Constitution as well. I can speak to my personal experience. I graduated in 1995 from the Police Academy, and I received training in all of those subjects. And as we heard from the director of the academy, he provided a fairly comprehensive binder and actually exceeds some of these hours that they're currently teaching. And he said he was open to more teaching on this subject as well. So I think this bill is unnecessary, and this stuff is already being done.
Representative Murphy, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur.
Thank you. I would add that I think that I thank the sponsor for bringing this to our attention, and in so doing, showing us what we are currently doing. And I think that the standards and training is excellent. And with that, I will ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion is inexpedient to legislate.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Sellers,
Yes.
Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Tenzar,
Yes.
Representative Harry Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy.
Chair votes yes.
Motion passes 20-0.
Any objection to consent? Seeing none, it will go on consent. With that, I close the public hearing on the executive session on HB 302. And I need to do this correctly. We said we were going to we close the executive session on which bill was that, to do the test strips.
Mr. Chairman, I move reconsideration of HB 287.
Thank you. And do I have a second? Thank you. And I'll just, you can speak to your motion if you want, but I'm just going to say, for technical reasons, we agreed to retain it, and that would be the official thing. We have to undo that so that we can work on it and fix it with the other bill that we retained, that we are going to work on.
Mr. Chair. Right, so if we're undoing that, doesn't the person who made the motion have to be the one to? No, okay.
Does everybody understand? Let me explain. That I see some looks. The bill that we retained on the fentanyl test strips, the other one we did not retain. We left it open, and we're going to do a work session on it. But we voted to retain the other one, so the official record going to the clerk would be retained. We want to not do that. We want to undo that and then leave it open so that we may also work on it. Does that everyone get that? So, Representative Newman.
Would we then have to have any other vote to have it be able to be combined and worked on in a work session?
No, no. What we would do is then we would address both bills once we were finished working on it, and one of them would be ITL'd and one of them would move forward if all things work out great. With that, I would ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion to reconsider. Which bill number was that? 287.
Vice Chair Rhodes,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Sellers,
Yes.
Representative Janvrin,
Yes.
Representative Mannion,
Yes.
Representative Reed, Representative Stone,
Yes.
Representative Tenzar,
Yes.
Representative Harriet Gathright, Representative Muse,
Yes.
Representative Bolden,
Yes.
Representative Bradley,
Yes.
Representative Murphy,
Yes.
Representative Newman.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Newell,
Yes.
Representative Selig,
Yes.
Representative Wheeler, Chairman Roy.
Chair votes yes.
Motion passes 20-0.
And at this point, I'm going to then recess that executive session. And to be at the call of the chair, I'll let you know when we're going to work on that. And I believe that concludes our business for the day. Did we
Mr.
cover
Chairman,
everything? I want to make sure I covered everything because we jumped out of order. Okay.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, you've appointed a subcommittee for House Bill 144, and I looked at the House calendar. The deadlines for the House. I would say that in order to have that subcommittee convene for HB 144, it would more than likely be after crossover, and crossover occurs on April 6th, because I think it's easier to work on it when we're working on Senate bills as well. There's no urgency to working on this and to put it before the full House in next year in January.
Let's take that logistic discussion offline. I need to look at that to make sure. Anyone who was here today that is interested in or following one of the bills I appointed a subcommittee for, I would encourage you to reach out to the subcommittee chairs if you want to be a part of that discussion. And with that, I will close our business for the day. And thank you very much. Huh?